this is Jeannie. Welcome to Cakes and Aprons. Today we are going to 1960 to make a coffee toffee torte. Now this apron is asymmetrical, being that it only has one pocket on just one side of it, and I like the brown stripes that fan out with the yellow flowers. I think it looks like a perfect color combination for a coffee toffee torte from 1960. I got the recipe from this book. It is a Better Homes and Garden cookbook from 1960 called the Dessert Cookbook. And we are going to make this beautiful cake that has coffee chocolate pudding filling in the inside. So why don't you brew a cup of coffee and join me in going back to 1960s to make our coffee toffee torte. This recipe calls for instant coffee, and it made me wonder what the coffee culture was like in 1960. Well, it turns out that instant coffee was very popular in the 1960s and 1970s. In 1963, Maxwell House began marketing freeze-dried granules, which reconstituted into a beverage that tasted more like freshly brewed coffee. This was different than the instant coffee of the past.
Still warm, smoking hot, right out of the roaster. This is the moment of perfect freshness, of wonderful warm bean flavor. At last, this warm bean flavor has been captured for you in the new Instant Maxwell House.
At home, the coffee culture supported the idea the housewives were expected to satisfy their otherwise irritable husbands by brewing the perfect cup of coffee. The commercials begin with a disgruntled husband and a wife who cannot make a good cup of coffee.
This coffee is criminal.
Honey, you killed the petunias.
Then you admit it. Your coffee really is murder.
Papa Eddie, my coffee, it's murder. It's either too bitter or too weak.
After seeking the advice of a very wise elder, the wife is able to go home and make their husband a very good cup of coffee.
You know, it's a crime not to have delicious coffee like this all the time.
We will, now that I've discovered the mountains. Ooh.
Folgers Coffee, mountain grown for richer flavor.
The 1960s advertisements and commercials showed women how easy it was to satisfy their friends and their man.
Want anything special for your birthday?
Just a decent cup of coffee.
You're kidding.
I'm serious. Honey, your coffee's undrinkable.
Pretty harsh.
Well, so's your coffee. You know, the girls down at the office make better coffee on their hot plates. Well, see you later.
And he didn't even kiss me goodbye. You know, if I could just make a decent cup of coffee, I could relax. So, relax. Why don't you try Instant Folgers? Tastes good as fresh perked. Good as fresh perked. I'll surprise Harvey for his birthday tonight.
Hey, great coffee.
It's Instant Folgers. Doesn't it taste good as fresh perked?
Better.
Better than those girls make at the office?
Honey, their coffee can't hold a candle to yours.
Instant Folgers taste good as fresh perked. Try it.
But no matter the method of making coffee, outside of the home, coffee had a much different association than what was presented in these commercials. In fact, the coffee shops of the 1960s brought with it an urgency for change in social norms and were often a spot for conversation of human rights and activism. So if you had walked in a coffee house in 1960, the cost of a cup of coffee would have been about 15 cents. You would be going there to take time out of your day, sit face to face over a mug of coffee and sometimes little bowls of popcorn or peanuts or pastries. You would be opening up your thoughts and world to someone who you might never have met before. These coffee houses encouraged boundaryless environments and also encouraged political conversations. There was no backstage for the performers of a coffee shop. which may not sound like a big thing, but it actually encouraged audience members and artists to circumvent many race and class boundaries that prevailed in the 1950s and early 60s. Our Black performers, even in northern cities, were not allowed to interact with white patrons. Coffee houses of the 1960s were places of social leveling. Let's begin making this coffee toffee torte from 1960s, which could have easily been made to appease an irritable husband or served in a cafe. The instant coffee that I chose is from Cafe Bustelo. The first thing you will need to do is prepare an angel cake mix and bake in a 10-inch tube pan according to the package directions. Then you need to invert it after you bake it and cool thoroughly. Bake your cake until it is golden brown. Next, you can start making the filling for your cake. Use 1 package of chocolate pudding and 1 to 1.5 tablespoons of instant coffee. Put them in a pot and cook according to directions of the pudding, except only use 1 1/3 cups of milk. So after you make the pudding with the instant coffee, you let it cool. Beat the pudding mixture until it is smooth and only pour in half of the whipped cream. Once your cake has cooled and you remove it from the tube pan, you split your cake into 3 layers. Now your pudding and whipped cream mixture will be spread evenly on and in between the layers. I'm sure one of you knows how to get more even layers than I did, and please, I welcome your comments below on any suggestions. I cut my layers with a serrated knife. That seemed the easiest way to make a smooth cut. With the rest of your pudding mixture and whipped cream, you fold in the rest of the whipped cream. This will make a lighter color. And you take this, of course, you smooth it all around the edges and the top. Then you add your toffee. I did the Heath. I did 2 different kinds. I really prefer just the Heath crumpled toppings. However, I will say this cake has more of a coffee flavor than the toffee. So if you want more of a toffee flavor, I would suggest that you think of ways to add that. Maybe you could even, I don't know, add some kind of toffee filling in the inside. But I just carefully put all the little toffee bits all around the edges. And of course, I had sprinkled them on top. Voila, the coffee toffee torte is finished. And now we get to try the cake. This cake is so different, I think, for nowadays, because I've never had an angel food cake that has layers and is mixed with other things, but that is what a torte is. It's cake mixed with pudding and other ingredients. So let's see how this turned out. The coffee toffee torte. That is it. You can see that my top layer is a little bit bigger than the bottom layer. I think you're supposed to have those pretty even, but I love the way that the candy on top turned out. I can already taste the coffee, which I love. All right, so let us try the coffee toffee torte. Oh, good. That is good. It's I taste the chocolate pudding a little more than the coffee, but it's good. I love the way that it all blends. So this cake, of course, pairs very well with a rich cup of coffee. And it would be good for just after dinner. I think you could probably make it a little like a fancy thing. I like the way that it looks with the candy on top. Or you know what? Even if you wanted to have it for breakfast in the morning with coffee, I won't tell anybody. I promise. All right. Well, I hope you try this cake. It's been so fun to travel back to the 1960s with you. And I'll see you next time on Cakes and Aprons. One final suggestion about this cake is to make it ahead of time. Make it a day before, let it sit overnight in the refrigerator, and then cut and serve it the next day. And the reason is because the next day the cake was so much better. I could really taste the coffee more. It seemed like the angel cake just absorbed the coffee and the chocolate flavors a little more, and it turned out to be a much better cake the next day. All right, cheers, happy baking.